Hello, and welcome back to Taking a Gander. On this show, we take a gander at a different city or place to see if it's somewhere you want to add to your travel list. You see, I've gotten the opportunity to travel a lot. I have a lot of experience going around to different places, and I've often looked for those places that slide under the radar and that a lot of people don't know about. I want to take those places that I found and take the knowledge I have about them and pass it along to you so that I can enhance your travel list and give you some cool places that you might want to go in the future. Today, in episode 4, we're really going to go under the radar because we're talking about Mississippi, but in particular, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. Now, I don't want to just tell you about this place. I actually have a mission today. My mission is to change your mind. So let me ask you a question. What do you think of when you think of Mississippi? I think a lot of people have a negative connotation with that. Overalls, in the woods, with a banjo, maybe some mosquitoes, poverty, things like that are kind of the negative reputation that Mississippi has. But there's more to it, and I bet you don't think of a couple of these things. So, do you think of beaches? Do you think of casinos and big resorts? How about golf? Do you like to play golf? Would you ever go to Mississippi to play golf? I don't know. Well, maybe after today you'll consider it. You might be asking yourself why I ended up in this area in the first place, and it's pretty straightforward. See, my wife and I got married, and we were looking at vacations, and we thought, we could go to a beach somewhere, on an island. We could do a cruise. Oh, should we go over to Europe? I don't know. A lot of people have these vacations and honeymoons in mind, Hawaii, for example. But we thought, we're too weird, we're too different. Let's do something that other people don't do. Let's do a road trip. I have to give my wife credit because it was originally her idea and it was an awesome honeymoon. And what we did is we started in New Orleans and we drove for 8 days, and each night we stayed in a different town all the way till we got to Panama Beach, Florida. And through doing this, 2 of the nights were actually in Mississippi. Now at the time, and when we were planning, we kind of thought that Mississippi would be the part that we weren't exactly excited for, but it turns out that it was actually one of the best parts, and it still stands out in my mind as being so fun and so special. And so I thought, episode 4, let's bring it around, let's bring it in. I want to talk to you about it, and I want to change your mind about Mississippi. And believe it or not, you might be planning a trip to Mississippi before you know it. So I've heard this area called a few different things, but the Gulf of Mexico and the coast of the Gulf of Mexico obviously is a lot bigger than just Mississippi. But in particular, this area of, say, New Orleans all the way over to Panama Beach, some people call it the Emerald Coast, which is a nice name and sounds fancy. But my favorite one that I call it, and I picked up from this, is called the Redneck Riviera. You can't beat that name. It says it all, doesn't it? This is exactly what we did. And if you see right here, this section of the coast is actually Mississippi. So there it is, right there on the water. Typically in my videos, I like to cover population numbers, different statistics like that. But in this area, we're really talking about a collection of a few different cities. None of them are too huge, so there's not so much to discuss here. It's really a 5-county area that's considered the coastal region of Mississippi. And in those 5 counties, there's obviously a lot of cities. We're going to talk about 4 of them today. The 4 that I want to discuss are Bay St. Louis, which is spelled Bay St. Louis, but it's called Bay St. Louis. Gulfport, which is the second biggest city in Mississippi. Biloxi, which I think a lot of people, especially people in the South, might be more familiar with Biloxi than any of these other places. And then last but certainly not least is Ocean Springs, which we're going to get into. I got a lot to say about that. Before we dive too deep into this, I found a few interesting things I thought I'd share to kind of warm me up about this area. First one here, famous quarterback Brett Favre from, he played on a few different teams, but everyone knows him from Green Bay. He was born in Gulfport, so he's from here. During the summers between 1951 and 1957, Elvis Presley actually stayed here, so it's got to be pretty good. In fact, he stayed in Ocean Springs. One of the small towns that we're not going to spend too much time on is called Pass Christian, and Pass Christian has a yacht club that's actually the second oldest yacht club in North America. And then finally, another interesting one, as you see along the coast here, there's a few islands that stick out. And during Prohibition, the famous gangster Al Capone was actually using these islands to smuggle liquor into the United States. And this was one of the main areas that liquor was coming in. Those are just some historical and funny little facts about it. And also I found this website that I got a lot of information from today. It's called Coastal Mississippi, and it's gulfcoast.org. And it's a local tour guide type website. And if you go to their site and go to plan right here, there's a tab called Secret Facts. There's a lot of them. There's actually quite a few good ones here. It's kind of sad that they hit it so far down the list. If you want to just read some interesting things about coastal Mississippi, I recommend this page. Let's take a second to look at what types of trips you might want to do here. I think what we did was really perfect. I think this is the best kind of place for couples. If you just want to do a little drive down the coast, it's only about 1 hour from one end of Mississippi to the other on the coast. So it's a really short drive, so you can do the whole thing in a day. You can drive back and forth, so you're not limited in any way there. A lot of it's relaxing and just the type of atmosphere you want to just enjoy yourself, enjoy your partner. And the other reason that really stands out here is Biloxi is actually a pretty big casino resort town. So there's a lot to do there. There's actually more family-friendly type stuff to do there too. I think a lot of people will go straight into Biloxi and miss the rest of it, which is unfortunate. But that's definitely one of the big draws here, which we'll get into. Another notable thing about the casino resorts is that a lot of them are associated with golf courses, and there's apparently a lot of really good golf courses around here. So you can actually get a package with one of the big hotels, stay there, gamble, go to the pool, whatever, and have a golf trip associated with that trip as well. Something that a lot of people do. I've heard the golf is great. I don't golf so much, but that's something that a lot of people told me was great around here. Now that we've covered the area, let's hit those cities and let's talk about some things you might want to do in each of them. Starting with Bay St. Louis, I think this was the start of our love of this area. We really were not expecting this at all. When we were planning our trip, we almost skipped this. And then we found this hotel, which I'm so glad that we did, called the Pearl. And this hotel was really, really nice. It's right there on the water. I'll show some pictures that we took. Pretty much everything you're going to want to do in this area is right around this hotel. There's a couple other options as well. It was certainly a new hotel, but it still had this kind of like old-timey vibe in a good way. It was really pretty. The people are nice, and it's quiet and it's relaxing, and you can walk right across the street to a couple of these restaurants and bars that are on the water there. This area was actually hit pretty hard by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. A lot of the area got destroyed, a lot of the restaurants got destroyed, and the bridge that you actually drive from Bay St. Louis across to the beaches there, that was actually completely knocked out. I have a picture of it. And because of that, most of the stuff that you would visit now is pretty new and it's been rebuilt. So that's taking a negative into a positive, I guess. We had a funny conversation with one of the girls that worked at the Pearl. She worked at the front desk. I told her, I said, I never heard of Bay St. Louis. And she said, yeah, a lot of people haven't. And I told her, I'm like, I'm not sure. Am I supposed to tell people about this or am I not supposed to tell people about this? And she kind of laughed. It's like a secret place, and once you find it, everyone there knows it, but people just outside of it don't. The first place we went while we were in Bay St. Louis was just up the road here called the Ugly Pirate Bar. And this is exactly my kind of place. If I wasn't on my honeymoon, I would have stayed here all day. But it's a super small bar, pirate nautical theme, and they serve pizza. Next to it, they have a little ice cream shop too, and it looks like from their website that they do some sorts of live music events and things like that. But this is my spot right here. I'll show you. So this is it. Basically sit out here. The bar's right here. Very small place. Pirate flag. I mean, you can't beat it. And then of course right here on the other side is an ice cream shop. So just walk up, have some pizza, hang out. The people that worked there were super nice. I talked to the bartender for a while. From there, we walked back towards the hotel, hung out in the hotel, relaxed a little bit, and we ended up getting a few drinks and some dinner later at what's called the Blind Tiger. The Blind Tiger is a restaurant chain. There's about 4 or 5 of them along this area. I think all but one of them are in Mississippi, and maybe one was in Alabama. Because our honeymoon was over 8 days, we were here in about the middle of the week, so it wasn't too busy at night. But the Blind Tiger was probably the one bar that had the most people. So we hung out here for a little while. It's cool. It's right on the water. The weather was awesome that day. So we were able to just enjoy it. Everything was open and had a good time there. So I would recommend that place. They have a lot of seafood, different appetizers and stuff you can get to. The next morning before we continued on, we actually went up here for breakfast at the Mockingbird Cafe. This is a restaurant that a lot of people recommended to us. And here, just as we go into the street, you can see the little Bay St. Louis signs on the light post. I mean, you can see how cute this town is. And this is a Mockingbird Cafe. They do like coffees, very healthy eating. Everything's made from scratch. Our breakfast was really good. You can see here their menu, some options they have. They make everything from scratch. It was really good. I had avocado toast, which I really liked. So if you're in the area, I mean, there's no reason to miss this place. And then what's really awesome is right next door, if you just walk across the parking lot here, there's this place called the Shops at Century Hall. And it's this whole building here. And inside the shops, they have all kinds of different artists and vendors in little booths as you go up and down, and they're all selling different things. So you have paintings, sculptures, pottery, local things with fish on them. You know, Bay St. Louis, we got a Bay St. Louis Christmas ornament. So there's a lot to choose from here, and you could walk around and really, really cool. If you like art, there's so much to choose from here, and definitely very unique of the kind of the coastal culture that exists there. From there, after we left Century Hall, we actually went across this bridge here, which is part of 90, over towards the beginning of the beach, and we actually pulled off right here at this curve and parked on the beach. And it was so incredibly hot that we didn't spend more than 5 minutes on the beach, but it was really cool. The sand is like super bright. It was pretty quiet on this side of town. I think a lot of the beachgoers are much more on the Biloxi side, but it's really nice to drive down the road. As you're driving down the highway across the coast, there's these little sign with shrimp on them to give you mile markers of where you are. So it's a good way to like look for things. A lot of people refer to those mile markers, so keep an eye out for those as well. Just past the point where we pulled off, this is the yacht club that I was referring to. So this is the second oldest yacht club in North America. A lot of boats, so people have fishing boats, but also the fancy yachts that they take out into the Gulf. You'll see a lot of cool stuff here. And just before you get to a Gulfport, there's one other thing that I want to point out. It's one of those like neat like roadside stops that you hit while you're on a road trip. They have the University of Southern Mississippi. They have a campus here, and on this campus there's this tree. I'm gonna find it right here, and it's a oak tree that happens to be 500 years old, and it's this one right here. I'll show some pictures closer up. It's a notable landmark that has been obviously famous for how old it is and how long it's been there, but people will take pictures there. They will have weddings under it. It's really cool. It actually survived Hurricane Katrina, so that kind of gives it a little bit of more provenance these days. And just one of those funny things that you just pull off the road to see. I'm going to put up a plaque that's next to it. I thought it was kind of funny and endearing at the same time, so if you want to pause the video and read this, it was pretty good. The next stop along the way is Gulfport. So as I said, this is the second biggest city in Mississippi, and it definitely has more of a downtown city vibe. Definitely not huge, but you get that city feeling a lot more here than you do in any other places. And they have the Mississippi Aquarium, so this was really cool. I didn't realize this when we went there, but it must be fairly new because you see here on Google Maps, if I drop this down, that the pictures actually show it under construction. These pictures are from 2019. You could see here the sail, which I'll show a picture of us by the sail here. This must have been right when they were building it. I'm guessing it must have opened in 2020. If you want to know a lot more about the aquarium, I found this article by these bloggers that's really good. They're called Dang Travelers, and they have a whole article about the Mississippi Aquarium, and I thought this article was great. It really covered a lot. While we were there, we did quite a bit. I think we did most of it. It's not a huge place. There was a dolphin show that we got to see, so the dolphins were doing tricks, and we got really close to them. The people that work there were super nice, so they actually talked to them after, and they were telling us all about what they do there and how they take care of the animals. There's an area once you get into the aquarium where you can pet stingrays and other type of fish. There was this one fish named Banjo. He's a guitar fish, and he fell in love with my wife. I thought I was going to lose her on our honeymoon. No matter where we went and no matter who else was there, when she would walk around the pond, he would follow her, and if she stuck her hand in, he would come up to her hand for some reason, and he just loved her. So Banjo, we're thinking of you. We'll come back and see you one day. They also have some alligators and crocodiles there. I actually learned the difference between an alligator and a crocodile on this trip, so that was something actually educational. So you can see all the fish, the crocodiles, the dolphins, and they also have a section with birds. We missed one thing on our trip. It was the only thing we had on our list that we just drove completely past and never went back to. In Gulfport, they have the world's largest rocker, so it's a rocking chair that's just massive. It's a few miles away from the aquarium. We had it on our list the whole time. We planned to visit it, but for whatever reason we forgot, and then by the time we remembered, it was like the next day. And we said, oh, well, one got away, I guess. If you want to see the world's largest rocker, it's in Gulfport, so don't miss that. I also want to emphasize the fact that as we're going from town to town, this drive from one to the next is like 10 minutes each time. The whole drive all the way across is maybe 1 hour. You can hit all of this in a very short period of time if you just want to drive through. Biloxi, which is our next stop, is probably the most notable town on the Gulf Coast, specifically because of the resorts. You can see here, not only do they have resorts, and I think people who know baseball might recognize the area because of the baseball team. It's a minor league baseball team, I believe, for the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't really gamble much, but from what I read, the Beau Rivage is the top-notch one here. You could see a couple here on the water. There's also one for Margaritaville that has a big family area, or kids, I should say kid-friendly area. They have like rock climbing walls and also a water park and a huge arcade. Some people are telling us about the arcade. I can't remember what it is, but there's some kind of record set with this arcade and how big it is. So if you want to come with a family, that's an option for you. Quite a bit to do here. We drove through Biloxi. We stopped at Woody's. This gives you a good idea of what the area is like. You know, these like tourist areas that have these big restaurants with big signs, and you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. One thing that I remember from this trip, we were living in Georgia at the time, but we're from up north, and I'm kind of a big hot sauce guy. A lot of people are going to think I'm stupid for saying this, but other people might learn something. I had Crystal's hot sauce for the first time here, which is one of the biggest hot sauces in the country. It just happens to be more popular in the South or in Texas, for example. It's from Louisiana, and I've got to say, when it comes to your basic like red hot sauce, Crystals is my favorite now, so you can fight me on that one. I found this map here on Thrillist, which kind of shows like some of the hot sauces that are popular, and you can see right here, Crystals, this bottle with the blue label right here is from the New Orleans area, right by where Tabasco is from. So you can imagine it's pretty popular in Mississippi. So another funny, kind of embarrassing thing that happened to us is on the way, we heard that there's this lighthouse near Biloxi Beach that's really popular and a good photo op. So I can show you right here. It's this lighthouse right in the road. Can't miss it. Well, on our way, what we didn't realize was there's another lighthouse before you get there, and this was a huge mistake. Just a few miles before we got there, we hit this one area, and I got to show you this. This was probably the low point of our trip here. There's this little man-made peninsula here, and on it there is a lighthouse, and I promise you this is not the one that people are referring to, but there's a lighthouse here. I'll show some better pictures. First of all, as we pulled in, we drove up this sand road here all the way to this little peninsula pier thing, whatever you want to call it. And I hate to say it, but it is what it is. It was more or less a homeless encampment where people were fishing for survival, not for fun. It was completely filled with trash too. It was really dirty and really unfortunate, not pretty at all. It's not connected to the lighthouse, so we drove all the way back around, basically off-roading, and then came around to the parking lot to this lighthouse that was just dilapidated, filled with graffiti, and just not pretty at all. And so we're sitting there, we're like, this is not a fancy lighthouse. Why would anyone take their picture here? Only to find out, 2 miles down the road that we're at the wrong one. If you're going, this is not it, don't go there. From either one of these lighthouses, the right one or the wrong one, if you continue on just a little bit further east from Biloxi, is really the gem of the show, in my opinion. People may disagree, but just across the bridge here, there's a town called Ocean Springs. Ocean Springs to me was amazing. My wife and I will go to a place, and once in a while we get the vibe that, hey, I would live here any day of the week. She had that recently when we were in Asheville, North Carolina. She's like, this is my spot. For me, I've had that a few times. Chattanooga in our first video, that was one of the spots that I felt that way. Lexington, Kentucky, that's another one we've been to, where as soon as we got there, we both were like, let's move here. But for me, Ocean Springs, you got a place for me to stay? Sign me up, I'm moving. I love this spot. When we got there, we stayed at this little boutique hotel called The Roost. If you have an opportunity to stay here, it wasn't super expensive. It was so nice. I don't know if it was a house or what it was that's been converted into a hotel, but a gorgeous little hotel. Each room has a unique kind of feel to it. Here's the pool. We stayed there for a while, actually while we're at the pool. So we got there, we're laying in the pool, we're relaxing, having a drink, and there's this other guy in the pool with us. We're just talking to him. I'm like, man, this place is really nice. He's like, yeah, I really like it too. I was like telling the story about our honeymoon and how we're driving through and we saw this online and we had to stay. And he's like, oh, that's cool. You like it? And we're like, yeah. So we're so happy. Our room is awesome. I was like, how's yours? He's like, oh, I'm not staying here tonight. I'm like, oh, why not? He's like, oh, I'm the owner. So the owner of the hotel just happened to be sitting there. He was totally messing with us, trying to see what we would say, but he was a nice guy. So we ended up talking to him. And then there was another couple that came in. They were a little bit older than us, and they have been coming down from Michigan to Ocean Springs for years. It's kind of their getaway, and they were from Michigan in basically the same neighborhood, like only a mile or so away from where I was born. It was really just kind of this weird coincidence. They were awesome. And I'll show you here a couple of the rooms. So you can see each of the rooms has a very unique feel. They all have interesting names, so you reserve your room by name. I can show you here which one we had. We had this here, which I think is called the Islander. Yeah, this was it for sure. Right next to the pool, so as soon as you got the door here, the pool was there. At night, they had a bunch of cool lighting, and they had a couple guys come who played the guitar. And there's a bar there that serves fancy drinks and some appetizers. So we just sat at the pool, having nice drinks, listening to music, eating appetizers. I mean, you really couldn't beat it. It was so nice. Between this hotel and the Pearl, I mean, that really made our trip. Those hotels were both so nice that I think they had a huge impact on how much we like this area. Most of the action in the town here is between Washington Avenue and Government Street. I could show you right here. I mean, you'll get the charm right away. I mean, just look at this car that happened to be parked here. Totally didn't plan that. I mean, it just shows you what this place is like. These little buildings with their nice, like, New Orleans style balconies and stuff like that. Just so cute. This here, the Lovelace drugstore. I think it's a clothing store now, but they have an awesome sign and just this like really rustic look. Just so charming. We go up the road a little bit. I think this is a taco place we went to. Different bars, little tattoo parlor. There was this ice cream stand here we went to. These pictures do no justice. I'm going to show some pictures I have. I just can't tell you how much I really just love this area. Little grocery store with a restaurant out back. Old car again. They also have an event here called Cruising the Coast. It wasn't going on while we were there, but people told us about it, And here, look at these pictures of just cars lined up along the streets. Thousands of people come with their cars and overwhelm this city. People even come internationally and just to see this awesome car show. It just gives you an idea of the town and what it's like. It's very lively. An older crowd, I would say. A lot of people who are just chilling, relaxing there. So it's definitely a little more low-key, but you know, the older people who are a lot of fun, those are the ones who are here. We noticed one other thing while we were in Ocean Springs that was interesting, and we happened to be there during a very troubling time for the city. I don't mean to make fun of it, but it was pretty interesting what happens. We noticed there was pictures of roosters everywhere, and they all had the name Carl on them. And then as we were walking around, a rooster started following us, and this rooster would literally walk into businesses and out, and everyone just acted like he owned the place. And it turns out Carl the rooster is like a staple landmark figure of the town, a mascot, if you will. The Carl that we met was actually Carl number 2, and only a few months before we got there, some lady kidnapped Carl and basically murdered the poor rooster and dumped him in Biloxi, and she got caught. And so it was all over the newspapers and the town and stuff, and everyone was talking about it. And I actually just looked this up. After we were there, she was charged and actually found guilty of killing poor Carl. Pretty crazy story. I don't know what kind of psycho kills a rooster, or especially one who's like the town hero. It's just kind of messed up, but good thing is justice was served to her, and now everyone can celebrate Carl. And Carl number 2 seemed to be doing a good job. We couldn't even tell that he was any different than the original. Just a really funny story. If you ever go to Ocean Springs, you're going to have to meet Carl. He's hard to miss since he's walking all about the town. I might retire there one day. I got to convince my wife. Got a little bit of time before I retire, but I'm telling you, this is one of the best spots I found. Now, per usual, I like to leave you with at least one tip before we go, and I have 2 today, so I think they're both going to help you if you're interested in going here. The first one is actually pretty cool. So in order to try to entice people to stay longer, the area does what they call one more day of play. So it's an idea, if you come for the weekend, well, stay Monday too, because we want you to stay longer. A lot of places have specials for Monday. So you can get cheaper airfare, you can get cheaper gas. There's all kinds of different deals and coupons and stuff that you can find specifically for Monday. So the idea here is that they want people to come in Friday night and not leave Sunday morning, but stay till Monday or stay even longer. So if you're going to go and you're thinking you might go on a Monday, you can find a lot of specials on that day. The other thing I want to point out that's a good tip is that you will find an airport in Gulfport, Biloxi. There's some smaller ones around, but prices can vary depending on where you're coming from. And if you just zoom onto this map just a little bit, you're going to notice that New Orleans is right here and Mobile's on the other side. New Orleans in particular has a little bit bigger of an airport where you can get better deals. So depending on where you're coming from, it might make sense to fly into New Orleans and rent a car there. From New Orleans all the way to, like, say, Ocean Springs, all the way on the other side, let's say it's not very far at all. 1 hour and 35-minute total drive, and that's if you went straight from the airport to Ocean Springs. But of course, you can make some stops along the way. I might fly into New Orleans if I was going to do that and try to save a few bucks if I could. We've come to the part of the video where I like to give my goose rating. I really have been dwelling on this one for a long time. I had to get my wife to give me advice. It was so much on the fence, and I finally have come to a conclusion. So before I give the rating, I want to recap my rating system. So of course, 1 goose means skip it, totally not worth your time. 2 gooses means, maybe if you're doing something in the area, there's an event, go ahead and check it out. 3 gooses means it's good. If you're into the beach, maybe you want to see Ocean Springs, or you like to gamble at casinos, there's something for you here. 4 gooses means I recommend it. I think you should add it to your list. And 5 gooses, super rare. Not going to give a lot of these. That means it's my top choice, one of the best ever. So I was really teetering between 3 and 4 for this one. I wasn't quite sure, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? It's my channel, it's my show, I can do what I want. I know it's going to be controversial, but for me, this is a 4. I think I really, really recommend this area. I couldn't believe how much we liked it. I couldn't believe how fun it was. Again, probably more for the more laid back, relaxing type weekend. Drive up the coast with your windows down, see the beach, eat some dinner, go to a resort, stay by the pool. The prices aren't bad. I really, really recommend this place. I loved it so much. I don't know exactly when we'll make it back here, but I really hope that we do soon because I liked it that much. And I hope you get to check it out because I think this is one of those gems that's just completely missed. And this whole part of the country, if I'm really honest, all the way from here through Alabama and this part of Florida is really, really underrepresented in people's travel. And I think that it should be high on everyone's list. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I've changed your mind about Mississippi. And hopefully you can get here one day. Thanks again. I had fun with episode 4. Looking forward to talking to you again. Episode 5 coming soon. We'll see you soon.